And the universe might throw you a curveball and bless you with an income dip so you can learn how to drop shame and drop your connection to worthiness around your income, right?
You're listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Jill Perrick, a business and mindset coach who specializes in imposter syndrome. If you feel like you're not as smart, capable, or worthy as you actually are, and that someone is going to find you out, then you've come to the right place. I went from being a struggling government worker, working my coaching business on the side, but feeling unworthy and burnt out, to making multiple six figures helping women overcome imposter syndrome so they too can sign clients, make bank, and have the business or career of their dreams. I am nothing special. I have a stuttering disability, ADHD, and I struggle with anxiety and depression. So if I can learn how to feel good enough and overcome my inner imposter, then so can you. Let's dig in. Hello, and welcome back to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Jill Perrick, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about money, because this is something that comes up so often for my clients. And actually, we have a little friend here today. Miss Ruby Tuesday is here. And we have a little guest here today. While I'm recording, you can't see her, but she is very cute. And if you've seen my Instagram stories, then you'll see that we got a new puppy. Her name's Ruby. And she loves her mummy. So she was crying at my door as I was recording this. So I have her in the room with me. And we're going to see how much we can record between now and when she gets annoyed, right? Or are we going to go to sleep? That would be nice. Okay. So like I said, money comes up a lot for my clients, whether they're in the From Imposter to Empowered program or in the Real Deal Mastermind, whether they're a one-to-one client. The topic of money is so universal, and it's bound to come up when we're talking about business, about sales, about marketing, etc. And these things, again, are going to come up, and so are your limiting beliefs. So is your scarcity when it comes to making money. It really does affect your sales game, and it really does affect how you show up and sell. So especially if you are in the realm of business coaching, money coaching, or any of these things. I coach a lot of women who also have ADHD, and a lot of them struggle with moral perfectionism and being seen as a good person and feeling like a good person. And sometimes the topics around money and selling can feel like they're taking advantage of people or being a bad person, etc. So all of this is going to affect how you show up and how you sell your offer. And this is a really important conversation that we need to have, because how you view money is largely going to impact the way that you price your offers, the way that you show up and sell your offers, the way that you manage the money that does come in, and the way that you think you can receive through your business. If you have shame or guilt or any kind of thoughts around money, specifically scarcity around money, then that is going to show up 100%. Like, that is probably about half of the conversations that we have inside of my offers, like the From Imposter to Empowered program or the Real Deal Mastermind. We do talk about scarcity that a lot of us grew up with. So let me just set the stage, okay? I grew up in a very average middle-class family. We always went on vacations. We always had enough growing up, but it's so conflicting because the language that was used around money and spending was always about how we didn't have enough, there isn't enough to go around, or we just have enough, right? Like, even though I did grow up with a lot of privilege, whenever there were conversations about money, there was always a lot of scarcity attached to it. There was always a lot of, we can't spend too much, and this is too expensive, and we can only just have enough. It's kind of like when you go to a hotel and your parents are like, if you take anything out of the mini fridge, we are going to go broke and you're going to go to jail. So that's how sometimes I felt. And even though we had all these things, I felt a lot of scarcity around money, and it always had this not enough feeling or this just enough feeling. So of course, I carried that into my young adulthood. I remember going to university and I got big bursaries and scholarships and all of those kinds of things, but I went to the mall and fucking spent the majority of it, even though it was supposed to be for, food and stuff. I ended up spending a lot because I had this conditioning and this pattern around just having enough. And then when I started my business, I was working full-time for the government. I was making about $3,000 a month for my full-time job, and the same pattern continued. I always had just enough for my bills for whatever I decided to spend on, and I didn't learn financial literacy at all. It was not something that was taught in our schools, and my parents kind of did this thing where they just assumed I would learn things. Like, they kind of did this
with all three of us. They just assumed that we would learn those kinds of things. And I'm like, where the fuck would I learn about managing money from? You know, like if it's not from school, it would obviously come from your parents, but I was just never told. So I didn't have a great relationship with money and therefore accumulated a lot of debt. I spent a lot of money and I learned that I had ADHD, but that wasn't until years of impulse spending and trying to get dopamine hits from shopping, etc., right? So all of this to say, I just word vomited all of my scarcity with money to you. I had a lot of stories around money and a lot of stories around not having enough or just having enough for the things I need, but not the things that I wanted. And then I grew my business, and it was so interesting watching this pattern play out, watching the pattern of just having enough play out in the business when I was making $5K a month, $10K a month, $20K a month. I would be at the end of the month and be like, where the fuck did all my money go? Because it was this subconscious pattern that had been playing out in my life. And it wasn't until I actually started looking at my scarcity around money that I was able to heal it. And that had a direct impact on my business and on the money that was coming in through the business. And it's always so interesting to coach people around these topics. For example, I have a client who's in the From Imposter to Empowered program, and one of the first things that she got coached on when she came into the program was the fact that she thought millennials couldn't afford her services. She had a lot of thoughts about people being able to afford her work, and we actually did some really good coaching around this and her own conditioning and her own thoughts that she was projecting onto her audience. Because she had those thoughts, she was really not charging what her services are actually worth. She was really hesitant in signing more clients because she had all these thoughts around like, I'm taking advantage of people. Who am I to charge this? People don't have any money. Why should I do this? Etc. So if you're somebody with thoughts like this, they are inevitably going to mess up your sales game. So can you bring some awareness to your own stories around money? And listen, I do not have a special story around money, around struggle, or any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, I was fairly privileged growing up. I was able to take out student loans, go to university, go on vacations with my family. I never have gone without food before. I've never gone without a home. That is not a story that I have. But there are a lot of circumstances around money, around the language of it, and how it was talked about and perceived. Even now, there are a lot of patterns and behaviors with my family, in my family structure, where people still talk about it in such scarcity, right? And I always say we had more than enough, but the way that you guys talk about it, it was like we didn't have anything at all. And it was just such a conflicting thing to grow up around. But the whole reason why I'm telling you all of this is because your story around money matters. It doesn't matter if it's not this dire, I was on food stamps kind of story. And if you were, that is super traumatic and hard to work with and totally understandable why you have these thoughts. But if that is not your story, it's not your story. Your story is yours, and until you actually look at it, confront it, and learn to move forward with that, then it's going to show up in your business. Even if it's not something super hard or traumatic, it's still going to show up. It's going to show up when you price your offers. It's going to show up when you go to invest in yourself. It's just going to show up, period. The other part of this that I really wanted to talk about is that there are a lot of you, I am positive, who listen to this podcast, and I'm so happy to have you here, but I know for a fact that there are a lot of people working towards your first 5K in your business. You're working towards that first 5K month. You're absolutely going to get there, and if you want to get there faster, actually, you can join the From Imposter to Empowered program, okay? Just saying. And you know, even if you have made a substantial amount of money before, your patterns around it can still be coming up for you. If it's putting pressure on the business, you need to cut that shit. So for the majority of you, you will have heard the story of me driving for Uber Eats. I had been at 15K to 20K months for a super long time, and then I experienced an income dip in the beginning of 2022. And that was when I had to drive for Uber Eats for a month. It was a very transformative experience for me because I had to learn how to drop shame completely when it came to my situation with money. I had to learn how to overcome the feeling of I'm not good enough and I'm not doing enough. All of those things, right? I had to learn how to pay my bills without being able to bring things in through the business, and that was just a really hard but pivotal time in my business for me because I finally dropped shame around money, around my management of money and my responsibility around it. feeling like I was irresponsible. I realized it had nothing to do at all with my business and the success that I can have, because up until that point, I had really connected my income to my worthiness. I had really been like, I'm only good enough if I'm bringing in income into the business. I had to learn the lesson that no matter what is going on in my business, I'm worthy, I'm good enough, and I'm really good at what I do. And I had to keep that shit separate. And that includes any habits I had with money and anything that I felt around it. I had to completely separate the two, because when you connect your worth to how much you're making or how much your business is bringing in, it's a recipe for disaster. A lot of people end up quitting their business, or they experience income dips. They go through this confidence roller coaster and really feel like they're not good enough, especially feeling imposter syndrome too. All because maybe they had a little bit of an income dip or hadn't made a sale in a couple weeks, and all of a sudden their worthiness plummets, their sense of confidence plummets, and that cannot be the case for a sustainable business. And that is what was totally happening for me. I had to go through this initiation with driving for Uber Eats for me to come to this realization. I truly think the universe put that on my path, because even though it was a very difficult thing that I had to go through regarding my business, I learned so much, and I'm such a different person now because of the work I did during that time, the inner work I did during that time. And of course, I never stopped showing up. I never gave up, and my income rebounded just a few short months later. So why am I telling you this story on the podcast for the millionth time? I'm telling you this story because when you project your own thoughts about yourself in reference to money, and when you're in scarcity regarding money, you have to learn how to take the responsibility and the pressure off of your business. And this will sound insane from somebody whose primary income comes through the business, right? I don't have any other avenues that I get paid through. It is through the business. The business pays for my vacations. It pays for my face cream. It pays for my dog's food, right? Like, it does what a full-time job would do. It pays for my life. But I literally feel so neutral about my sales, about my income, and it doesn't mean anything. I know that if I needed to, I would go and get a job. I would figure it out. But I never put the pressure or the responsibility on the business to support me. And that can be really scary for some people. Like, really scary. And they're like, of course I need to make money, Jill. I need to make money. Whenever somebody has come to me before I had this big initiation with Uber Eats, I would be so stressed out and I would not know how to coach them. And I was like, fuck, this client really needs to make money. I need to help them, blah, blah, blah. And after all of that, I have no issue with telling clients, hey, if you need to, you can go get a job, right? Because like, I have learned that you really do need to learn how to release the pressure, because you can hurry up and make the money and sign a client, feel desperate, all of these things, and then you could sign a client from that energy, but that pattern is just going to continue to play out until you overcome the source of that pattern. Nobody is going to have a successful business and sell confidently or do any of these things when there is so much pressure on you to grow the business, to bring in sales, and to make things happen. It's just not something that's going to be helpful for you. It's not something that's going to be beneficial, and the universe might throw you a curveball and bless you with an income dip so you can learn how to drop shame and drop your connection to worthiness around your income, right? You need to drop the shame around needing a job or needing supplementary support, because it does not mean anything about you. It does not mean a thing about you and your level of being an expert, even if you're a business coach, even if that is a part of your results. I truly believe that when an income dip occurs, it has more to do with your confidence than it actually has to do with your ability to get clients results. And I know this for a fact because when I was going through my income dip, my clients were getting phenomenal results. The clients I had were making 10K months, 15K months, 5K months, 20K months, signing clients here and there. And I was on the other side of it like, okay, this is amazing, go off, but like, what am I doing wrong, right? So I think that was really huge for me to say here, that even if you're a business coach, it doesn't have to mean anything about you and who you are as a person if you need to supplement your income until things get rolling, right? Sometimes we have expenses, sometimes we have bills that exceed what we're bringing in, and it's no big fucking deal. Your worthiness is not connected to the income that you're making. And it just makes a lot of sense to have an external income source, right? If you're carrying shame around that, or if you're so stressed about the business performing, you take away the ability to see it as something amazing that you're building. Instead, you see it as a fucking cash cow. You see it as, this is supposed to satisfy something inside of me. This is supposed to satisfy my bank account and my bills and pay for my kids' food. It's like, you're an entrepreneur, and if the business isn't performing how you think it should, oh, and that's another thing, you guys. I just feel like there's this whole group of really entitled people that came into the online space, and I've definitely coached a fair share of them in the beginning, being like, where are the results? But the thing is, it's not 2020 anymore. You have to actually fucking care about building a legitimate business with client results. You have to put the work in to have a business that is sustainable. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be so easy. And there is marketing out there where someone's like, I did this in 3 days and I made $300K. And sometimes that happens 100%. But the reality is, you're building a business. You're here for the long run, and businesses have hiccups. Businesses have times when they're not always super profitable, and it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it just means that your confidence went down, that you're in an income dip, but it will be okay. You will come out on the other side, and you can glean the lesson from it. Getting a job or having an external means to make some extra money sometimes is the best course of action, because you don't always want to put that pressure on your business. You don't want your biggest problem in the business to always be about, I'm not making enough money. If you need to hear that again, you need to hear that again. You don't want your biggest problem in the business to always be about, I'm not making enough money. Because if it is, you're not thinking about the longevity. You're not thinking about, how am I getting results for my clients? How am I making things better? How am I really growing as a person, as an entrepreneur? And you're not planning ahead. You're thinking like an Instagram coach instead of an entrepreneur. You're not thinking about the long term. Like I said, you're just thinking, how can I get to the next sale? How can I get to the next client? And this is coming from someone who has fucking been there. Things are going to be very short-lived if that's how you think. And that's my honest to God attitude whenever I've had a client that is very much like, if I don't make anything in the next 3 months or some stupid shit like that, am I even going to do this anymore? And I've literally said to people before, if you're not willing to do this and not make a sale for the next month or 3 months or sometimes even 6 months or a year, you shouldn't be doing this, truthfully. Because if it's only contingent, if your passion is only contingent on, like, is it generating income right away? If you helping people and actually making an impact in the world is based on how quickly you see results, then you should just pack up now, because you are going to give up so easily. And this is not to shit on making money. You guys, like, you know how much I love to talk about making money, and I think you deserve all of the money. I truly think you do. I think I do. I think we are both worthy of making all the money that we want. And there's nothing wrong at all with desiring to make money and to be somebody who is in this primarily because you want to profit off the work that you do, 1,000%. But if you're on a timeline, if you're telling yourself, if this doesn't work out, I'm out of here, you're not building trust in yourself. And an audience can feel that. If you're not in this for the long haul, if you're not seeing the longevity in your business, and instead you're living in scarcity, just holding on for the next client to come through so the business can pay your bills, it's like you're not thinking big enough. You're not thinking like an entrepreneur should be thinking. It means you're putting a lot of pressure on your business and on yourself, and it's just really hard to make sales from that place. It's really hard to tell yourself that you're doing a good job and that it's enough. And this is coming from somebody that knows exactly how that feels. Coming from somebody who for the longest time was like, I have to pay off my debt. I just don't feel good enough with every sale. Every sale felt like womp, 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 because I was just thinking about the next one. I was just thinking about the next client being like, it's not enough, it's not enough. And this was such a toxic place to be. And I really think, again, the universe was like, you need this fucking reality check so I could learn how to separate my worth from the income that was coming in through the business. I had to learn how to neutralize money and neutralize the experience of bringing in income through the business, and instead see it as, I'm thinking of this long term instead of, well, because I have an income dip, I guess I'm quitting. Right? And that's just inevitable when you own a business or when you switch things up, when you pivot, blah, 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 when you have a confidence dip, but you're here for the long run and you're here to make lots of fucking money. There needs to be no shame attached to doing what you got to do to make shit happen. So if you want to be having these conversations, if you want to drop the scarcity around money so you can sell confidently, charge what you want to fucking charge and not be thinking to yourself, is anyone going to be able to afford this? If you want to get the fuck out of everybody else's wallets, if you want to overcome that feeling of imposter syndrome so you can show up and sell confidently, if you want to learn how to get so specific in your messaging for your offers so your potential clients feel like you are the person for them, This is the shit that we do inside of the From Imposter to Empowered program. We use mindset, emotional mastery, and strategy to help you create those 5K bare minimum months. That means that 5K is just the beginning. It's the baseline of what you can create, and we're going all the way from 5K to 6K to 7K to 10K a month and beyond. All right? This is the From Imposter to Empowered program. I love this group of women inside so much. They are amazing, and I can't wait for you to meet them and to coach you inside of this program. When you join for 6 months at $597 a month or $3,400 pay in full. You can also opt to join for 12 months if you're into those long-term mentorship vibes and you know that I am the coach for you. So you can go to the link in my show notes for the sales page, or you can send me a DM at your coach Jill on Instagram, and we can chat and see if the From Imposter to Empowered program is the right fit for you. Okay, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in next week's episode. Bye. Hey babe, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Screenshot it and put it on your stories and tag me at your coach Jill. And if you really love me, you'll rate and review the podcast. And if you screenshot it before you submit the review and send it to me, I will send you a free gift on me. If you want to take this work deeper, come and work with me in the From Imposter to Empowered program or the Real Deal Mastermind. And finally, if you want just a snippet of my work to feel what it's like to be in my world, then you need to buy my best-selling book, You're Not Special, and you can get that on Amazon. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next week.